All right, we'll call to order the Stevensville Town Council meeting for Thursday, February 11th, 2021. Ms. Bernhardt, please call the roll.
Councilmember Devlin.
Here.
Councilmember Ludington.
Here.
Councilmember Sherd.
Here.
Councilmember Vic.
Here.
And Mayor Dewey.
Here. All right, please rise and join me in pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first procedure tonight is public comment from citizens on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Any public comment, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Okay. Council has before them approval of the minutes. You have January 14th, 2021 council meeting minutes before you for approval. I'm gonna ask if you please turn off the devices. We're still working. They redid some stuff with the speaker system, so we'll work through it. If you guys would just yell, it sounds like you're a little close to the mics, so or to the speakers behind you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Okay, moved by Ms. Devlin, seconded by Mr. Sherd to approve the minutes. Council discussion? Public comment? All right, hearing none, Ms. Berghoff.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherd,
Aye.
and Councilmember Vic.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Before you tonight is claims 16504 through 16567.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Vic, seconded by Mr. Sherd to approve the claims. Council questions or discussion? Mr. Sherd?
The only claim I had a question about was 16533. Fourth from the top.
What's your question?
Oh, just a clarification what that expense was. Looks like $1,100.
Oh, so we have a subscription to a software program through Unicode. That subscription, what it enables us to do is to build our agendas through a system that basically takes attachments, compiles them all together, and that's how we publish our council packet to you folks. So it helps with our scheduling and all of those other pieces.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's an annual cost, by the way. Any other questions on the claims?
Yeah, we've got Montana Department of Environmental Quality Community Connection Fee. Annual Community Connection Fee.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, what number again?
16536. Fiscal year 18, 19, annual community connection fee.
Is that the $2 we collect?
No, it's
$1,700. I hope not.
$17.22. 152.
Yeah.
$19.
536. I know it's an annual one we do every year. Sorry about that. I know it's the annual fee we paid for it's part of their outreach, I guess, from the community connection fee that we pay. It's 2 units of 161 each. If you want, I can get more information on it and give you the packet. That would probably be the best thing to do. They have, we pay these guys a lot and just, I don't know the actual real detail behind this stuff. I know.
Probably isn't in there, no.
Again,
Probably isn't in the claims, no, I was just wondering.
I get the invoice.
They don't, does the invoice dates from fiscal year 18-19, or is that just a carryover from a recurring claim?
It's carryover.
So what happens is when we have a recurring claim that happens every year, they'll use the old claim and just make a copy of it, and it doesn't look like we changed the data when we.
I think it is annual.
So it doesn't look like we're paying an old claim. Any other questions from council? Is there any public comment on the claims? All right, Ms. Bertha, please call for the vote.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Schurd,
Aye.
and Councilmember Vic.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Administrative reports tonight, first meeting of the month. We'll hear from the department heads. Our airport manager is out of town today. Actually, he's out of town for the week on travel. So I'll kind of verbalize an airport report for you folks. Just to kind of bring you up to speed on some of the operations there. Obviously, volunteers are handling the snowplow and snow removal operations and they're doing so sufficiently. We haven't had any challenges in that regard. We do have challenges at the airport in regards to wildlife crossing the runway as aircraft come down. And so we're working with law enforcement to address that along with Fish, Wildlife and Parks. Our preference, of course, is to get the animal out of the airport unharmed. When that doesn't happen, then sometimes we have to resort to dispatching the animals. So we're exhausting all options first, but of course, keeping public safety paramount. We did have an aircraft collide with an animal weekend before last, and no one, of course, luckily was injured. Of course, there was damage to the aircraft. So we're keeping a close eye on that. And while that's going on, we're exploring options. It appears that it could be that animals are crossing the cattle guard based on how it's designed, and there are some gaps where deer could easily just cross. And there's been some eyewitness accounts by contractors that deer have been crossing the cattle guard. So in that regard, we're exploring some options to maybe upgrade the cattle guard or install some sort of gate system that would allow traffic to freely flow, but would prohibit animals from entering that space. So, we're just kind of notifying aircraft operators that there is a risk to landing in our airport. We do have a wildlife fence, but sometimes it's inadequate. I think otherwise, the airport is doing well in terms of operations. The only other piece I'll bring to your attention is that we do expect an influx of traffic. Hamilton's notified their users that they'll close their airport on March 15th. They're saying 3 months. Our experience with projects is 3 months is ambitious. So we're anticipating we'll have an increased flow of traffic because of Hamilton's closure during their project. And then we'll have a significant number of people using our airport instead. In fact, some fuel operations have already initiated or relocate to our airport temporarily from the Hamilton airport. So outside of that, I think that pretty well hits everything the airport is covering. The city court report, the judge gives a court report on an annual basis to the town council. She does so in writing. So that report is included in your town council packet for your information. The other change you'll notice on your agenda is we've kind of changed the building department report to community development report. Part of our budgeting process was kind of consolidating planning and zoning and building under the community development department. So you'll see a building report, I believe, in your packet tonight that covers the detail from the building department specifically in terms of what they're doing with permits. On the planning and zoning side, I can give you an update there. Public hearings, of course, you're aware, public hearings have been scheduled for Burnt Fork Estates. And we'll hold a total of 2 of those hearings. And then you will, of course, dive into the details of that subdivision through your approval process. We continue to see increased activity in terms of phone calls and inquiries from realtors and prospective developers and buyers throughout the community on, anytime a piece of property, especially in town, goes on up for sale that has some potential in terms of development, the phones usually ring off the hook. And so that's, I'll cautiously use the word burdensome. It causes a bog down of regular operations when those kinds of things happen. So we're kind of going to initiate a few outreach measures towards realtors to kind of help them better understand our code and how they can utilize the code as a resource rather than calling us and asking us point blank questions that they can find the answers to themselves. So we're working on some of that to kind of address the community development pieces that we're working on, but there is continual trajectory of growth, I think, heading our way. I think that the town council can expect some revisions to the plat of Twin Creeks, phases 2 and 3. Looks like they're going to maintain the same density. I had a meeting this week where they're, I think, proposing the same density, but they're going to kind of reconfigure how that density looks in the subdivision and open up a little bit more common area than what's already platted for their permanent plat. So you can expect that to come through. We also have 2 applications for the zoning change coming up that the town council will eventually get through once the planning and zoning board has a chance to review those. One of those applications has been deemed incomplete, and so we're trying to gather more information, but the other one looks to be complete and will be brought forth for planning and zoning very soon. That concludes community development. Are there any questions on that rapid fire or what I covered? All right, I'll turn it over to finance. Mr. Underwood?
Okay, a couple things for tonight. We just started the budget process for FY 2021-22 at the very beginning of it with some of the department heads. Number 2, we submitted round 5 CARES just last month for a little over 150K. I haven't heard back on that yet. We did get some money from round 4. Should be hitting our bank any day. Yeah, we just got the slip from what I'm saying if they've approved our round 4. We're also kind of mentioned the airport meeting, the airport project. We talked with Morrison Merrily and the project, which will be coming before you later on. But the project went over by 202K. Put an amendment to the grant into the FAA. That looks like they're going to fund 90% of that. That will leave the town with about 20K that they will owe, or the airport will owe. But on top of that, we got a $30,000 CARES grant. So we're going to put that money, the $20,000 into the CARES grant for the airport. So that should make us pretty good. In the end, bottom line is the airport will still be over about 100K in their fund at the end of the year, which looks good. Cash report right now, we're a little bit under 3.4 million in the bank. We do have some money like the Montana Aeronautics coming in, which will cover the 10% that would be our cost share for the airport project, which is about 170K. That should be coming in. Revenues for the year right now, I gave you a sheet there. We're at 64% collected. When we get some of that bigger money, like from the airport, you'll see that number go up real quick. And then for expenditures for the year right now, we're 58% spent on the budget. Any questions?
Fire department, Chief Molly.
So I'm sure my report is in your packet. It's pretty self-explanatory. January, we had 56 requests for service. 20 were in the town, 36 within the district. We had 1 fire call and 45 medicals and 10 motor vehicle crashes in January. Currently, right now, we're running 2 new cadets through the Firefighter One training program. This is the 3rd week of the program right now. And that should be completed by the end of March, maybe the 1st week of April, but hopefully by the end of March. It's kind of weather dependent on that. So we have that going on right now. I believe we have 3 names before you for approval. They're not on tonight's packet. They'll be in the next meeting's packet. But we have 3 new volunteers that have asked to join the department. And we've met with them and we've put their names forward for your guys' approval. So other than that, we're moving on and we're trying to get some more volunteers. Right now, we're running a roster of about 18, not counting just 3 new. So we're moving along. Any questions?
Thanks, Julia. All right, the Parks and Recreation report is in your packet for your review. Mr. Sunstang is on paternity leave currently. He'll be out for approximately 6 weeks. He's in his 1st week of that paternity leave. So this will probably be the last report you see from Parks and Recreation for that time period. And then, of course, he'll bring you up to speed on happenings once he's back in the office. But I'm happy to field any questions on that report if there are any. All right, Police Department. Mr. Ellington.
Good evening. Guys, I have an accident from police department report during the month of January. Alspot completed training. He's currently in the streets right now. And Officer Guy returned from his military obligation in Washington, D.C. He's also back on the streets. So we have pretty much 7 days a week. Night shift covered. With that in mind, regarding the December 20th letter, I was able to speak to Sheriff Holden in person. We sat down for about 3 hours. We kind of mended some relationships and came to agreements on how felony investigations will be handled. So it's really positive moving forward, and we're pretty much in cooperation with pretty much everything so far. So we're keep building on that relationship. Statistically speaking, 54 calls in January, either proactive or received call for service. And then assisted county or MHP or any other law enforcement agency 4 times.
All right, thank you. All right, last but not least, the Public Works report is in your packet as well. That report was prepared by Mr. Sunstein, who's not here tonight to relay that to you. And of course, I'm not going to put Mr. Cruz on the spot quite yet. He's not ready on his report. So if there's any questions on the Public Works report, I'm happy to field those. Otherwise, we'll move on. Very good. We don't have any guests recognized tonight. There are 2 items of correspondence in the council's packet tonight. A letter from the Stevensville business owners and a letter from Victoria Howell and Joan Prather. The Stevensville business owners letter is brief, and so I'll go ahead and read that to you folks into the record. It says on February 1st, 2021, to members of the Stevensville Town Council, the Stevensville Planning and Zoning Board has recommended approval of the Burnt Fork Estates subdivision at the corner of Middle Burnt Fork and Logan Lane, about 1 mile east of downtown. The subdivision includes a 16-lot commercial area, which would be rezoned C2. We're concerned because the proposal does not conform to the goals of the Stevensville road policy, which says that the town will encourage reuse and infill in existing commercial areas and provide for the continued success of downtown. We're also concerned that the business community has not had a chance to weigh in on this proposal, which will now go before the town council. Please do not approve this commercial development, which would be totally disconnected from the town's existing commercial area. Signed Joan Prather, former executive director of the Stevensville Main Street Association, Victoria Howell, former owner of the Bitter Star, Jimmy Edwards of Front Fork Market, Mark and Dana Bateman of Stevensville Hotel, Nicholas Burgess, Tin Can Bar and Draft Room, Rich and Kathy Marcus, Catered Table, Gretchen Spees, Rivers Miss Gallery, Deborah Kroger, Burning Sage Studio, Eric Hayes, Blacksmith Brewery, Tracy and Chad Smith, LA Drug and Variety and Family Pharmacy, Rachel Burke, Stonyville Press, Robert and Kate Lutzenheiser, Lutzenheiser Brewery, Craig Johnson, Romeo's Italian Kitchen, Cody Omelet, Kodiak Jacks, and Sharon Meter, Wildwind Floral. The next letter from Victoria and John Prather is quite lengthy, a page and a half of material. And so I'm going to forego reading that verbatim into the record. It shares similar sentiments. It's the same date. And it's included in the packet online for the public to review if they wish to do so. It is signed again by John Prather, former executive director of the Stevensville Main Street Association, and Victoria Howell, former president of the Stevensville Main Street Association. Okay, the council does not have any public hearings scheduled before its body tonight, nor any unfinished business. We have 3 items of new business this evening. The first being Resolution 484, establishing the written minutes as the official minutes of record for hearings and meetings of the town council. This item, as an introduction, is largely in response to repeated comment that we've received from at least a citizen. There seems to be a lot of confusion around the recordings of our meetings and whether they're designated as the official record of the town council's minutes. We have not been able to find any policy in the town's records that states that the audio recording is the official record. State law does say that you have the ability to designate it if you so choose, but it doesn't require that you do. And we can't find anywhere in our records, at least in recent history, where that's ever been done and designated. That being said, there's a long history dating back and even into a little bit into the 90s where we did record meetings. We have recorded meetings, and we've always kept those as permanent records per the retention schedule required by the state. So this resolution is not indicating that we are going to do away with recording meetings, especially via audio. We will always record those meetings, and we will keep those recordings as permanent records. What this resolution does is basically clarify, at least for the administration and clerk, which set, if you will, is it the recording or is it the written minutes that are the official record? Now, when we bring minutes before the town council, we ask you to approve the written minutes. We never ask you to approve the recording. And those written minutes are stamped, signed, scanned in, and then stuck in our minute record records. And generally speaking, if there's ever an issue where we're subpoenaed or asked for minutes for court proceedings or any other type of litigation, rarely do they ask for the audio. They usually ask for the written minutes first. If there's questions on those written minutes, then it comes back to the audio. So we're just kind of clarifying that the written minutes are in fact the official record. It is not our intent to change any procedures. We're basically hoping that if the council approves Resolution 484, that you're reinforcing and solidifying the practice today, which is your written minutes are the official record of your meeting. We will always maintain audio records and audio recordings for meetings in our official files as well as on our website. That we want to maintain the written record as your official record. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the council prior to considering adoption if you want to.
So what about correspondence? Is that kept with the minutes or is it kept with the agenda?
So we had this conversation actually today with Janelle about how we're compiling some of these documents. Practice has been that when minutes are approved, then those are signed and stamped, approved. they go into a binder with the entire packet for that meeting. So when you open the binder, you will find the agenda for February 11th. And then you would find the approved minutes for tonight's meeting. You then, from that point forward, you'll find exactly what we publish online in terms of a packet. And any additional correspondence or material that might have been handed out at the meeting. So if somebody came to a meeting tonight, read aloud public comment and gave us a copy of that, we'd include that into the permit file. That's been done. Most of our records look that way, with the exception of 30 years that burn in a fire. Otherwise, that's the way everything looks. That's actually how we were able to go back and figure out who was mayor and who was on council when. It was based on how they signed the minutes and who signed it.
So when we get the emails, when we were doing the Zoom meetings and those are included in there as well.
Correct. And I think that's where some of the confusion maybe came about is that we were getting some very lengthy public comments through email that it would have been prohibitive time-wise to sit and read those in a meeting. And a lot of the concern that we heard from one individual was that the audio is the record, and so you're basically diminishing those public comments by not including them into the record. Well, of course, we state into the record those exist, so that if someone would ever listen, they know they exist and that they should be looked for. But we've always printed those and included them into the permanent file for that meeting, which is why we want to designate the written minutes as the official record, so that if there was ever a request for a certain meeting, for certain public comment, we know that the official record exists in permanent paper file.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 484.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Sherd, seconded by Ms. Devlin to approve resolution 484. Any further council discussion?
The only thing I have to say is that any organization that I have ever done any business with that does anything with Robert's Rules of Order, the written minutes is the final say so. There's never been a question. I don't think about that. Except for from this single individual that has made the same statement over and over again.
That's why we type them and then put them in front of you for approval, so that multiple eyes see them before they're blessed with ink. To verify that those are the actions taken in the meeting. Any further discussion with council? Public comment.
And the Rotobod 204 Valley Street. The problem with this is a public meeting. People without computers have no idea what the email said. Like for the planning and zoning, they have no idea. If you don't read them, no one knows. They can't access what happens here in a written form online because they don't have computers. I think it's 41% of the people in Stevensville are my age, elderly. I know how to run a computer. I have 4 neighbors that don't. And you're denying them public participation, which in the past we have objected to. If you don't include the public, all you are is just a governing body talking to yourselves. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Okay. I'll just address that real quickly for the benefit of the conversation, that if there are people out there, citizens who wish to engage in the affairs of their local government, it's as simple as coming to town hall and requesting copies of whatever records they need, and we'll provide those so that they can be reviewed. I guess I don't know how establishing an audio recording as the official minutes of record would help someone who can't operate a computer or doesn't own a computer in understanding what happened at the meeting. And you know, with that, we'll go to whatever means necessary to help. In fact, just statistically, we know that about 15% of Stevensville's community within the city limits do not have a computer in their home. And 10% don't have a smartphone in their home, which is relatively low when you think of percentages. So, but that's something we're looking at as to how we outreach, because we're tracking quadrant-wise who interacts with us through the internet. So, in the community, nonetheless. Anything further from council or public comment? All right, Ms. Bertha.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Schurd,
Aye.
and Councilmember Vic.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That motion passes unanimously. The next item of business is discussion decision on the consent, the mayor's appointment of Steve Cruz as Public Works Director. Mr. Cruz is kind enough to join us this evening. He has been blessed with the privilege to be quickly baptized into the public works realm with plenty of snow and cold weather. And if that hasn't scared him off and he still showed up tonight, I think we can proceed. His cover letter, resume, and supplemental question answers are in your packet for your review this evening. Just a kind of a highlight on the process that we followed in replacing the Public Works Director following the retirement of George Thomas in December of 2020. We solicited nationwide applications for the Public Works Director position. That yielded actually 3 applications, which wasn't as large of a pool as we had hoped, but all 3 candidates were well qualified in their varying ways. Mr. Underwood and I conducted a first round of interviews that were quite lengthy and elaborate, and answered a lot of questions we had about the candidates. We interviewed all 3, and then we were able to narrow down that pool from 3 to 2. From there, I invited Mr. Ludington and Ms. Devlin to join me in a second interview. Robert and I frankly came to a pretty tough split place between the 2 candidates. Like I said, they both brought strengths to the organization in their own unique ways. And it was a very tough decision to weigh the 2, and we wanted some other influence, knowing that council would weigh in on this decision through consent. I invited both Ms. Devlin and Mr. Ludington based on their experience with the town and in the hiring realm. And so we conducted a second interview, which went very successful, and in part helped me in my decision to appoint Mr. Cruz as the Public Works Director. Is there anything you'd like to highlight about your experience? It's not maybe already stated.
Succinct.
They don't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm not on the spot.
Mr. Cruz, everyone.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I've had 1 official day on the job.
Do you mind coming to the podium? The folks online have a hard time hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're behind them. It's on.
Okay. Thank you for putting your faith in me. 1 day on the job. Interesting days removing snow from the city. I'm very excited about this position, and I hope to meet or exceed the expectations. Very excited about being part of the community.
Are there any questions from the council for Mr. Cruz?
I was just gonna say, I'm glad that he didn't say that you were baptized in the sewer plant, so.
It's too cold.
I've got some prior experience.
Once baptized, it's a one and done thing. You don't do it more than once. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment.
Second.
Which one did you say? Sorry, I said it at the same time
I
someone said it.
said it.
Okay, I thought I heard it came from over there. All right, it's been moved by Mr. Dick, seconded by Mr. Sherb to approve the appointment of Mr. Cruz as Public Works Director. Any council discussion? Public comment?
Just a couple. It was never reported what the pay scale for Mr. Cruz is.
Mr. Cruz is salaried at $56,900.
Okay, and what kind of certificates does he have? Anything from where he came from, which is another state, is not transferable to Montana.
So he does, if you're asking about water and sewer, like for water and wastewater certifications,
Is that what he does?
he does not have those certifications, no,
Doesn't he need to have them?
not as the Public Works Director.
Okay, we have one person in the employ of the town currently that has all the certifications. Doesn't he have to be DEQ qualified?
No,
So he's handling our water and sewer and he doesn't have to be DEQ qualified.
I'll answer once. We have two individuals who are already certified on the plants. We have two more individuals who are in training on the plants. We're required to have one individual certified on the plants.
Righty, thank you.
You're welcome. Any further public comment? All right, hearing none, Ms. Bertha.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherb.
Aye.
And Councilmember Vic.
Aye.
Don't use yours anymore. Take it away from him, Jamie.
Are you awake?
He comes in with a bang.
I am now.
Thank you for that, Mr. Vic.
All right, sorry about that, folks. We'll work out the game. They just upgraded something back there and changed around the knobs, so we're adjusting. I didn't expect that when we came in today. All right, last item of agenda or last item of business on your new business agenda is discussion decision on the vehicle use agreement with BBS Incorporated, providing use of the backup ambulance for mobile COVID-19 testing. I'll tell you, this item is more or less conceptual to see how engaged you want the town to be in some sort of endeavor like this. We do have the vehicle available. There are some concerns from fire chief regards to its reliability. Is that a fair word? And maybe mechanical fitness. There may be some things that need to be repaired. Well, there certainly are things Mr. Vick's familiar with that need to be repaired on the vehicle. But aside from the mirrors that he tore off the side, there may be some mechanical things as well. That aside, more like I said, wanted to bring this to the council's attention as to kind of gauge how far down this road do you or do you expect the town to go if you're interested or not. And with that, I think I'll defer to Mr. Wick and maybe he can come forward and explain a little bit about the testing that he does and some of that background for the council's benefit and maybe some more of the concept of what we're looking at here.
So my name is Dave Wick. I'm with BBS Inc. Doing virus testing for, you need an address from 795 Porter Hill Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I've been doing virus testing for nearly 20 years. BBS has been around working with honeybees for 14 years. We have technology that we got from Army labs at Edgewood, Maryland, that were designed for protecting the troops in the battlefield from engineered viruses, unknown viruses. And the technology was designed for human protection. We adapted it for honeybees. COVID-19 popped up, the bee community said, Dave, you need to get out and start testing for COVID-19. So we have tested with Charles River Laboratories nearly 14 years ago on COVID-19, or not COVID-19, but on mouse hepatitis virus, which is a coronavirus, which is very closely related to MERS and SARS-CoV-2. On phylogenetic tree, which is the relationship of these organisms. There's only those three on this limb of coronavirus. We have seen this. We know to look for. We're rapid. We're very inexpensive for test. We are very quick. We're about 5 minutes, and it's a saliva test. We collect saliva in a test tube, dilute it with water, put it in the instrument, and 5 minutes later we have results. Right now, I'm collecting samples and then driving them back to my lab. It would be nicer and quicker and more efficient to put it into a vehicle and get an epidemiology of what is going on with the virus here in the community, as well as in the county and then through the state. County commissioners are on board with what we are doing. And they're very supportive of doing this. They wanted me to do this last March, and that didn't come together, but we're here now. And I talked with Mayor Dewey and made this proposal and bringing together, looking for a vehicle, looking for funding, looking for help, looking for whatever we can do to make this come together. I'm a small company working in a big world, but we can make a difference. We can test a lot of people, and we can do asymptomatic testing. My false positives are 0, my false negatives are 0. Bold statement, but that's what our record shows. So PCR has a very high false negative or false positive, and we can eliminate that. We can eliminate the need for masks. We can eliminate the need for social isolation. You go to the school, test the basketball team before they go out and play, and give them a clean bill of health. Nobody's infected. If you don't have the virus, which is what we look for, you're not infectious, period. The truck would be a great benefit, not only to me, but to the community. And if it needs to be repaired, I'll take on the repairs. We've got people that could do that. Maintenance, I'll maintain the vehicle maintenance. We'll repurpose the vehicle, which means we'll modify it to basic needs of putting lab equipment in the back of the vehicle. I don't need the cot, but I need the benches, I need the electrical, I need places to put compressed air and compressed gas. Any questions? That's pretty cramming 20 years into a couple minutes.
My question is, would the Stevensville Fire Department markings that are on there be covered?
We will cover all of that. It'll all be marked with my markings, and I'm going to change the name on it from BVS. We will change it to something else. I really don't need people coming to my lab. I need them coming to the mobile lab, and we'll address that and put out advertising for the mobile lab.
Okay.
So just so everyone's clear, the proposal is not the town of Stevensville provide testing to the community in any way, but to instead just we're more or less loaning a vehicle for that purpose to another organization that can't provide that service to the community. So the town of Stevensville is not getting into the testing business today.
Correct. As I understand, the vehicle has been not in use for a while, year, 2 years.
It's in backup status, so it serves as a backup to our primary ambulance that the fire department operates as a quick response unit and as a backup ambulance to the Marcus Daily ambulance. So this is the community's backup. It has been some time since I think it's been run in frontline status. The expectation with this agreement is that once the the term of the agreement runs out, that the vehicle is returned in substantially the same condition so that it's serviceable in the same way it is today.
Or better.
Or better, maybe it'll have mirrors. Chief, do you want to speak to any of the points we've discussed so far? Also, if there is an expense, it's not coming out of the fire department's budget. Let's just be clear about that as well. That was one of his concerns.
Yeah, it's not my budget to make it front line. The only question I would have is, one, I think it would be a valuable resource to the community, to the county, to be able to provide this type of a service. But my question would be, and I know it's hard to say, but what would the term of this agreement be? I mean, is this for now and forever and then, or are we done in 2 months, or are we done in 6, or what the term might look like?
I would suggest that we put a term on it of a year. Time flies when you're having fun, but a year, and then make it a renewable if everybody agrees upon it. And I would also put into it that it could be terminated with some sort of time frame, 60 days of written notification. I'm easy on that. And that all the vehicle would be returned in the same or better condition than it is currently. And I will remove the logos off of that.
Okay. Ms. Devlin?
So if it's a backup, what are the odds that will need that? And will this lead to us possibly having to buy a new backup?
So that's kind of my thought as well, but I think the agreement can be written in such that if our first 2 ambulance were to go down for mechanical or whatever reason, that we have some type of a short turnaround to receive that ambulance back, so we can put it back into service to meet our needs. And then poor David have to find another cart to which to continue his until our other ambulance came back up and we could resume or however that would work. So I would think that we should be able to work that out amongst the 2 entities as to, how we do that. But I would agree, I would want to have some type of a way that if the town needed that ambulance back as an ambulance, that we would be able to turn that around in a very short period of time, be back up in service to provide that ambulance service to the community. I don't know if that's a real stumbler, but I think that does need to be addressed. Another question is there any financial exchange for this use?
So the way that was originally proposed was that in exchange for use of the vehicle, knowing that the expenses of that vehicle, with the exception of insurance, which we're already insuring it anyway, would fall onto BVS and Mr. Wick. He's offered to test our staff on a regular basis at no cost. That was kind of what we came to. You wanted to speak a little bit to the cost of your test and kind of how that balances, I suppose. Does that make sense?
So the speed of the test is part of it. It allows me to do more samples. The cost of the test is minimal. The supplies are disposable throwaways, inexpensive. There's a couple parts that could enter in to be a little bit more expensive, but we're talking a cost per test of $15 to $20 a test versus the $120 to $200 a test that's currently out there. So turning that around, I take on all the maintenance of the vehicle. I take care of all of the added liability of the vehicle, so there's nothing coming back to Stevensville. And trade-off would come back to I'm not even sure how many people are on staff that we can test, but it is pretty much as needed. Anybody that's there, even Mr. Cruz on his first day, we'll include him on the group. And you guys are all welcome as well. So The financial end of it, it's a low cost for me. It's low liability for the city. And it helps get this off the ground and does serve the community well, in my opinion.
I guess I just want to follow up with the question that I was asking in the next statement. Is there ever a time where we need both of them? I mean, what is the reality that we would ever need both of those ambulances at the same time?
I'm sure you could come up with a scenario
Sure.
where that would be. It would be some type of a mass casualty event of some sort. It may be some type of a catastrophic or large evacuation type
Okay.
situation. That would be another time when that might come into play. We do have Marcus Daily Ambulance Service, 3 Mile has an ambulance, Florence has an ambulance. I mean, there are several ambulances up and down the valley that we could draw upon. But with that being said, it is very nice to have a backup rig sitting in the hall ready to go. But I do also believe that this does serve a great service to the community to be able to provide that at this time, considering the pandemic and the situation which we're currently in.
Yeah, and that's my comment. I don't think there's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to give back to our community in such a way as that. And we've never gone through a pandemic before, right? Everything's been go and try and figure it out as we go. I think it's a nice way to give back to our community.
As far as Chief Motley was referring to, if there is a mass casualty event where we need all hands on deck, it'll be difficult to get that vehicle back into ambulance mode shorter than a couple days of removing equipment and putting it back together. It's just that I'm putting a bunch of equipment into it. There will probably be close to $100,000 worth of equipment I want to put into it. New and used.
It'll be worth more than the vehicle.
Possibly. But if there's a need, if the primary vehicle goes down, within a couple of days, we probably have the backup vehicle back in play. I think that would work.
And the fire department, your fire department is situated that we would not be without EMS service. We would be without transport capabilities. We have EMS equipment on everything we own. So we would still be able to provide service, but we just would not be able to do any transport.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Devlin to approve the agreement. Council discussion? Do we wish to clarify, is it, because there's a few details that have been discussed tonight that are not incorporated into the agreement, and there are some things in the agreement that I think probably need to be removed or reworded. Is it council's desire tonight to approve the agreement as a concept with the understanding that the fire chief and I can move forward and negotiate and finalize the agreement with BVS? Or would you prefer us to bring a final agreement before you?
You guys can go ahead and negotiate.
That's your intent. Okay. Any further council discussion?
I think there's a lot of good elements in this and what you've written so far, but I do think that there are some additional
Sure.
information that needs to be shared and made sure that it's clear between both parties.
Absolutely. I'll be honest, I downloaded this off the internet. Pretty boilerplate. It's not really meant for a pandemic. Any further council discussion? Public comment? Okay, hearing none, Ms. Bertha.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Schurd,
Aye.
and Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. The fire chief and I will work and reword the aspects and work with Mr. Wick to make sure all parties are agreed to the conditions we discussed this evening and move forward. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you very much for your support.
Okay. I will, as usual, although we have just over an hour before we call it, I'll keep my executive report brief. I told my wife tonight, I said I'll be home no earlier than 7, no later than 9:30. The executive report, I guess I'm gonna turn this a little bit into a conversation and get some feedback from you. In terms of protocols with COVID-19 and the governor's intent to lift the mask directive statewide tomorrow. First and foremost, I think I'd like some feedback from the council as to how you would like to proceed with town council meetings. I think that's step number one in your first consideration is how do you want to proceed with council meetings in terms of mask wearing and any directive that way, and how you want to legislate that and enact that if so be. And I can pause and allow you to answer, or if you care to defer and just share your thoughts with me later, that's okay. Because I'm putting on the spot, but some feedback would be helpful.
Liability is a big issue for me. I mean, I think that's where we're headed with this, trying to protect each other. Is that if we don't show that we're trying to protect our constituents, we are liable. Know whether the governor and the legislation that was passed will assist us in that or hinder us in that. So that's, I think, is a matter for clarification with the governor's office as far as that goes. That's all I'll say.
Sure. Fair enough.
This facility requires masks and social distancing. Are we gonna continue with this facility? If we are, I think we keep doing what we're doing.
Correct, and I haven't consulted with the library. My assumption is that that they will continue to require masks in their facility. And before I started that conversation, I kind of wanted to know more or less where your guys' heads were in that regard. But it is our intent, frankly, until a bigger facility comes along, that we will use this one in perpetuity. The library's been agreeable to that, at least for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, we do kind of have a little restraint there in terms of complying with what the library asks of us in using this room, and they're keeping the same, I think, idea in mind that Mr. Ludington is in terms of liability. I think if they let us use this room free and clear without, any precautions in place, I think, they don't want to see any liability out of that side either. So.
Well, I'm piggybacking off of what you said. We're losing a mask mandate at the very time that the CDC is putting in more regulations. So it doesn't, I mean, who are the specialists in this, right? And I think that's what we need to listen to, our specialists.
I think there's something, I think there's something to be said for the fact that, tomorrow when the mask mandate is lifted across the state, or mask directive, the risk of getting COVID-19 is no less magically because blue pen, net paper. It's really a matter of the legislation enacted reduced liability for businesses. And I don't know how exactly it's affecting local governments. Like I can tell you, I have a town hall meeting with the other cities and towns across the state, with the League of Cities and Towns and all the other municipalities that care to join. And I think tomorrow we'll probably, hopefully, see some guidance or clarification on how we're impacted in terms of liability. The other piece of it is, from my perspective, and I'll let you continue to answer, liability or otherwise, I think we want to do the right thing and keep our people safe. Anything further on council on that?
Regardless of the mandate, I feel that we should be listening to health professionals and CDC guidelines. So if they have directions for us to go.
Okay, what I'm hearing is you'd like to maintain the status quo in terms of our conduct at council meetings and how those protocols are incorporated into our meetings. And so what I think I'll do is just for the sake of discussion, bring at your next council meeting forward the pieces that were agreed to very early on when we came back to in-person meetings, and just have you guys review those one more time and give your official blessing to those, so that they, that it's demonstrated to the citizens that there's buy-in on what we're doing from the council. I think that's important. So we'll continue that way in that regard. I can tell you in discussing the matter with the staff at Town Hall, it is my inclination to continue the request that people wear masks when they enter the facility. We have not been overly pushy by any means on mask wearing in the lobby, especially when no one else is in the lobby and they're by themselves. But we do ask for folks to be mindful of their, of face coverings when they enter Town Hall, especially when interacting with staff unprotected, because we rely very heavily on our staff in terms of making sure that they're able to come to work in a healthy way and that they stay healthy. And so we want to obviously maintain that. And there's, face coverings are a good line of defense to help towards that respect. So I guess more or less you can expect the status quo at Town Hall as well. I think that most of the staff have indicated to me that they're most comfortable with that atmosphere. So did you click on or off, Paul? Oh, I thought I heard a click over there. That's my trigger to know someone wants to speak, is when I hear your microphones click. Okay, I think that pretty well covers. I have one more thought that hit me and then it left. I'll move on to, I participated in a meeting this afternoon, and it was actually the first one of the year of the National League of Cities, Small Cities Council. As you're probably aware, I was appointed to that council earlier in the year. There's roughly, I think, 50 or so of us on that council from across the nation, and we represent communities of 50,000 people or less. And I think we're one of the smallest cities represented on that council, but nonetheless, just over a dozen of us, I think, or 2 dozen of us got together on Zoom today and discussed a number of initiatives that the National League of Cities is pushing forward. I kind of wanted to just give you, I left my notes at the office, but I wanted to kind of give you just a quick overview of some of the things that may impact our organization. One is that the EPA released new rules in terms of lead and water system relationships and the standards of lead in water. And those will affect communities of 10,000 people or less. So I'm planning to send some information that I learned from that. There's some town halls that they're hosting at the national level that I'll pass along to the Public Works Department so that they can kind of keep their thumb on the pulse of those EPA changes. It looks like there's about 3 years where you have an opportunity to come into compliance with those changes. I don't know exactly what those changes are, but that's for Public Works to kind of nail down and figure out how it's going to impact us. They of course covered a number of initiatives that they're looking to the Biden administration for help on, and obviously infrastructure is one of those. Broadband availability, housing, all the standard initiatives that you see cities and towns kind of chase after. Those are pretty cookie cutter, I think. One of the big things we covered though was the newest package coming forward for relief and aid, particularly to local governments. If you haven't studied up the latest proposal that's coming out of the White House and being run through Congress, is including $350 billion in aid to states, tribal governments, municipalities, and counties across the nation. And about 96 billion of that, 96 or 60, I think it's 69, excuse me. $69 billion of that is allocated to municipalities specifically. For the big municipalities, that'll be handed straight over to those metropolitan areas directly through Treasury. For the smaller municipalities, those of us under 500,000 people, which is most of us, we'll see that aid come to us through the state of Montana. The difference between, if that aid is approved, the difference will be, unlike CARES, this money comes directly to us for our use as we see fit in terms of pandemic response. And so we can use that funding to implement programs or whatever to respond to the pandemic, or we can use it to offset revenue losses if we see revenue losses in our revenue budgets. Namely, one example of that would be our parks programs, where we see a decrease in revenue naturally because people aren't participating in programs, and programs are a little bit harder to put together in a pandemic. So if that legislation is successful, I can see the opportunities where communities across the country will benefit. Certainly, I think this community will benefit. The amount of money that we receive, I do not know. It's based on your census data and the latest data that they're going to use. So we'll of course keep you guys updated as to what we can expect in that regard. And I think the biggest concern at the national level from the league is that the fact they think it'll sail through the House relatively smoothly. The Senate is where there's some serious risk that relief could be cut out of budgets. And so with that, I think we're eager to see some of that funding come through. There isn't a whole lot, I'll tell you, that we're funding because of the pandemic today that CARES covered before, other than things like our Zoom subscriptions and some other technological subscription type services that we implemented during the pandemic that are relatively minor impacts to our budget that we can usually, go lighter someplace else to help compensate for that. But there's also programs that we haven't been able to do, that I think could greatly benefit from some relief money if it was passed down to the town. We haven't at all touched on, even the testing situation. That was something that we, like Ms. Devlin indicated, we have a hard time participating in because of our resources. And this may give us the resource to help in unique ways that even if it's aid to businesses, that may be an opportunity to utilize that funding. And we get to choose how that funding is utilized. The state's not telling us how to do it. So there's a tremendous benefit compared to CARES in that regard. CARES was totally regulated by the state. Sometimes the state would change their minds halfway through as to how things work. So that more or less, I think, wraps up that piece. And the last piece I'll update you on is the chief of police recruitment. We have narrowed down the pool of applicants or candidates for that position down to 4 from an original pool of 11 or 12, I think. And all 4 candidates are outstanding candidates and bring great value to the organization. In fact, if we could just have 4 chief of polices, that would just make this a whole lot easier. We could just quit today. I realize it's not a reality though. So Robert and I have worked through an interview process, the first round of interviews, and narrowed it down to 4. I have put together, and this information is probably the first time it's hit anyone's ears, and we'll obviously put out a press release to better explain it to the citizens and how they can engage. But I put together a panel of citizens that will hear presentations from each of the 4 candidates in a public way. So we have targeted February 24th as a day that the panel will get together, hear presentations from the 4 candidates and have an opportunity to evaluate those presentations as a panel. The public will be invited to participate. They can come and ask questions of the candidates that either relate directly to the presentation that they give on a pre-assigned topic, or maybe it just relates to something in the community. We invite the public to participate in those. Because there are 4, it'll be a days-long process, and so I appreciate the volunteers who are willing to help us evaluate that. But I really wanted some public engagement in this decision. This doesn't happen very often where we get to replace the chief of police. It's a rare opportunity and we want to take it seriously and we really want to work through it as thoroughly as we can. So they'll have an opportunity to, we'll go through that process of that second presentation and interview. The candidates will also have an opportunity to meet with the existing ASPD staff. There will be kind of a facilitated forum there as well, so that the current staff have an opportunity to meet each of the candidates and provide me with their feedback. And then from there, in fact, we're trying to schedule this as such that the candidates can each attend the next town council meeting, so that, and we're not necessarily doing so to interview them or anything like that, but more or less so that they have an opportunity to see how the community engages and interacts and how we all conduct our business. So we wanted, if they're gonna, come all this way and visit the community, we really wanted to immerse them into what Stevensville is all about, and what better place than a town council meeting on Thursday evening. So that's where we are in that process, and I look forward to hopefully having an appointment before you in March for your consideration or consent rather. So barring any questions, I'll move it on to town council comments. Any takers?
I'll go. So if you have been on Facebook lately, you will notice that a weekend has been chosen for Creamery Picnic. So with that said, Civic Club is looking for a lot of volunteers to help with that. They're also looking for board members. So I just want to kind of remind people the Civic Club is alive and well. But it's needing some help. It's needing some new blood and some new excitement. So if you're dying to get involved with something that really does give back to our community, the Stevensville Civic Club would be a great opportunity.
Real quick, a thought came to my mind on the police chief position. I got a little ways and then realized I left out a step. We'll work through that process. When I have made the final decision on the appointment, that candidate will go before the police commission before I bring them before the town council for consent and give them a final offer. So their contingent offer is obviously contingent on the police commission. And they'll go through their process as they usually do with police applicants. So everything I've just described is right behind the police commission. Excuse me.
All right, I've got a couple of things here. It's been just brought up over the last couple of weeks since our last meeting, mainly some questions and whatnot. One is biggest thing that I got. The Johnson sent all of us a letter and in a section that they were concerned about water quality. That once that's getting into their homes, some people are starting to experience odd odors. I guess chemical-like odors in their water. And there's a lot of concern about that, and with discoloration of the water. I understand that obviously after the meter, if your pipes are changing the color of the water, that's not the town's responsibility, but they are concerned about it, and they're wondering if there's any resource that we can have for them to bring, a cup or a gallon of their own water from their tap to get it tested to see if it's okay. Also too, I been doing some thinking about the public hearings for the Burnt Fork Estates things, and I do like the fact that we're going to have a virtual meeting, but I do think that I personally think we should look at adding one more public hearing for in-person, so that we can ensure maximum participation. I know the state law says a minimum of 2, but I think with with a project as large as this, that we should be looking at we shouldn't just stop at the bare minimum with that. And finally, some people that and actually speaking on the letter that people received for the Burnt Fork Estates thing, some people noticed a comment in there about the utility program that we just reenacted the collecting of the monies for. it said on there that their fee was being reduced from $1.52 to 40 cents, and people were just looking for some clarity on that.
Thanks for reminding me on that, because that was one thing I meant to cover in my executive report. So yes, the council reinstated more or less the utility assistance program fee onto the water bills. Out of an abundance of caution, and for the sake of process, it was advised by the city attorney that you undertake the same process you would if you were raising utility rates or adjusting utility rates. It could be argued very easily that you're simply reinstating a fee at a lesser rate than it was originally set at. But oftentimes we spend more money litigating on those types of issues than we do in just actually completing the process. So it was advised by him, which is why we very quickly put those two public hearings together. That while you're considering the Burnt Fork Estates public hearing, we'll also give people an opportunity to provide public comment on the utility assistance rate. And it is being, while it is being reinstated, it is being reduced from $1.52 to 40 cents. So it was originally $1.52. It was suspended and taken off your bill. It's being reinstated and reduced. So yes, it is confusing. So we're undertaking that process out of caution so that everyone is absolutely aware. Much to our surprise, we prematurely put on the water bill that we were going to go ahead and do this. And no one noticed. We thought the phones would ring and people would scream, and no one really noticed, which either told us that people didn't care that their bill was going to go up 40 cents, or that they didn't notice the language at the bottom of their bill and that they needed another opportunity to provide comment, to be made aware of it. So that's why we're undertaking that process. And so to that point, a public hearing is required, just one public hearing. In fact, there are no state requirements that more than one hearing be held on any issue, but one public hearing is necessary for both Burnt Fork Estates and for the water rate issue. We've scheduled two. Now, if the council determines after those hearings that we need additional hearings, we'll schedule those, and you have the opportunity to hold hearings during your town council meetings as well, depending on the volume of people you expect at those hearings. But our intent was to hold the two hearings, and then at your town council meetings, you would begin to discuss and elaborate on the actual project for Burnt Fork Estates. So yes, thank you for reminding me on the utility. I apologize I left that out. Didn't update you. You were probably puzzled yourselves when you saw the letter. Right. No more council comments. Okay, board reports. Don't think any boards have met other than the airport board. And didn't sound like you were able to make the meeting Tuesday.
Wasn't made aware of the meeting on Tuesday.
Okay, we'll ensure that you're notified of those. They're generally on the second Tuesday of the month, correct, Robert?
Yes.
Second Tuesday of the month, airport board meeting. Okay, if there's no other board reports, we'll adjourn and we'll meet back up on the, I think it's the 26th, correct? 25th. 25th of February,
You can
right?
be here on the 26th.
Yeah.
I'm here all the time. We'll adjourn.